Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest of our On Point career conversations with my friend and colleague Helen Cowan. Hopefully Helen is going to send a request to join this meeting any moment. Here we are. The tool wall is requesting to join. Here we go, view request. God, we're getting... Hopefully, she says, fingers crossed. I shouldn't be too superstitious, should I? I'm sure Helen will be with us any moment. Helen, hi.
Hello, Dom. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. We're getting good at it. I feel like the connections, we're getting really good at this. I feel I also need to make reference to my background as well. I feel like I'm going with the future focus theme here and feeling like I'm in the fortune teller's tent.
I love it. I need to change my background. I mean, it's always this lily of the valley. Actually, I need to go next door to my daughter's room that's just been redecorated. I'll do that for next time, I promise.
Well, welcome everyone, and thanks so much for joining. And Happy New Year, everyone. This is the first of our Instagram lives in 2022, the first of many. And this conversation is going to be all about how making small changes to your daily habits can all add up to making a big impact, because we all know that at this time of year it's tempting to go for those grand plans and actually set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. It's the same every year, isn't it? We are warned every year that making New Year's resolutions, big changes from January the 1st, is just setting yourself up for failure. You know, it's not actually today, but usually, right, it's grey and miserable and cold, and, you know, the credit card bills come in, and we've got COVID looming over us. And there's the last thing that people really want to be doing is setting themselves a huge target of, you know, I want to lose 2 stone in 3 months, starting from the 1st of January.
Yes, I'm going to make January more miserable by starving myself. It's really not setting oneself up for success. So I think I remember, Helen, when we were talking about this conversation, you mentioned this brilliant article in The Guardian that kind of inspired you to thinking this would be a good topic for us to talk about. So why don't you tell us about that brilliant article?
Yes.
I've got in front of me, and actually I'm hoping that we might be able to post the link to it in the comment section. So
yes,
all of you can have a look at it.
It's genius. It's called 100 Ways to Slightly Improve Your Life Without Really Trying. And basically, if you've set yourself a huge target, you know, you're not going to go anywhere near it. You're not going to achieve it, but you're looking for ideas to create new habits, new behaviors. This is a list of ideas. There's 100 ideas of things you can do. Some are like really whimsical and silly, like let go of needing to stack the dishwasher properly. But some are you know, quite telling and could make a real difference. So read a poem every day, go out for a walk without your phone, drop your shoulders, you know, just tiny things. And the point is, these are you almost can't notice the impact of these things. They're so tiny. But what we know is that tiny habits can have a huge cumulative effect, because the impact of practicing a habit repeatedly, it's much bigger. You might just think one day, what difference is it going to make if I take the stairs rather than go up in the lift? But if you did that every day, it can have a huge impact. I love that list. I think there's so many good ideas in there. So I'd urge people to go and have a look and just choose one small thing.
It is brilliant, isn't it? And they all seem so achievable. I think that's the key, isn't it? You feel like you read them and you think, I could do that and that and that and that.
Yes.
And then actually when you achieve those things over and over and over again, it totally builds your confidence, and you then start to see results, and you know, you kind of go on from there. And I think in sort of thinking about this conversation, how do you apply that into the world of work and our careers? You know, I'm sure there are some really great lessons we can learn in how those small changes and small things and small habits can add up to making significant impact on career development and promotion opportunities, and, you know, just kind of feeling like you're regaining some sense of control. You know, particularly when everyone's coming back to work, you know, are they coming back to work? Are they not coming back to work? It's a real time of reflection and change every new year, as we all think about, you know, what does 2022 have in store? There's been some I'm sure everyone's seen the press articles about the Great Resignation continues. You know, that's the idea that the world's global workforce is on the move, very much inspired by the pandemic. You know, lots of people who perhaps were going to change jobs before the pandemic but decided it wasn't a good time, so they've stuck it out and they're now sort of thinking perhaps it is the time, or those that have already made that decision. And, you know, very often those have been really life-changing decisions, not necessarily about going and doing the same job somewhere else, but about actually, what do I want to do with my life? And And so, you know, as some of these things might feel like very distant goals, you know, very sort of unrealistic, or you know, you're not quite ready to make those big decisions. Making those small ones in the meantime can really help you feel like you have got a sense of control over your life and your career, I think.
Yes. Yeah. When I'm coaching people, so I was coaching someone last week who, a woman who wants to be more confident, more authoritative in her role. There's loads of things you can do to express more confidence, to exude and have more impact. But actually trying to put all those in place at once is really difficult. So just do one thing. So one thing you can do, if, for example, you want to have more of an impact at work, is in a meeting, when we get back face to face, you know, to sit back in your chair with your hands on the arms of the chair, rather than huddled over, sort of being the one taking note. You know, think about your posture in a meeting and what that is telling people. You know, there's 100 tiny things you can do. Just do one and do it really well and master that one before you try to change the world and change who you are, because that won't stick.
Yeah, absolutely. Those small things. I was thinking about, you know, it's about setting those goals as well, isn't it? You know, putting pen to paper. Gosh, that sounds really old-fashioned, doesn't it? You could also type it into your phone or laptop, but putting a metaphorical pen to paper and making a list and trying to be really focused about it. So maybe it's 5 things, which all seem really achievable, which will add up. I remember when I know I do this a lot on these Instagram lives, talking about when I set the business up. So when I set the business up, I remember feeling very overwhelmed by the idea of building a social media presence and thinking, where on earth do I begin? You know, I think I'd had a Facebook page, pretty dormant one, for about 8 years, and that was about as far as it went. And a friend of mine, someone who's been a very great advisor, everyone needs a really good advisor or mentor, had said to me, who's a total whiz at social media, had said to me, well, you know, you don't sort of think about how you're going to get, you know, hundreds or thousands of followers or what you're going to say. He said, just set very small targets, and, you know, start by saying to yourself, I'm going to send maybe 1 tweet a day and do 1 LinkedIn post a month. And suddenly when you boil it down to that, you think, actually, that's totally achievable. I can do that. And that sort of really stuck with me in so many other areas of my life, and thinking, what are the small steps I need to take today that are going to add up to, you know, if you do them every day consistently over weeks and months and years, suddenly you'll find that you're, you know, you're kind of well on your way to your you know, to your goals. And some of the things I was really thinking about were things like, you and I have talked about networking a lot, haven't we? And how difficult so many people find that, and how daunting it can so often seem. So maybe one of the goals that you could set yourself, it's just an achievable one, is to attend that networking event that you perhaps wouldn't ordinarily have done. And I'm now going to say, go and visit the Career Academy or the Tool Wall for advice on networking, or our previous Instagram lives.
Yes. Yeah. You know, or if you do go to a network event, I'm going to challenge myself to talk to one person that I wouldn't, that I wouldn't normally go up to and speak to. I'm going to find that one person. I'm going to go and have a conversation with them. There's a brilliant book. This book I've been reading, it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it's backwards, I think, probably in the Instagram, unfortunately, sorry. But it's called Atomic Habits. And in there, James Clear talks about how if you can get 1% better at something every day for a year, just 1%, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better at it.
Wow.
So if you start doing something that you barely even notice it, you would barely notice, it might feel like a big deal to you, but I would barely notice that I'd go up and speak to someone new at a networking event. I mean, that's one thing I've done. But if I was to do that in every networking event that I ever went to, which I do challenge myself to do, imagine the enormous cumulative benefit of that. And one thing that James Clear talks about, which I think is brilliant, and he's not the first to come up with this idea, is this idea of habit stacking. So the key is to use an existing habit that's well ingrained as a trigger for a new habit. So for example, for me, one thing I want to do is every morning, mid-morning, I go and make myself a cup of tea. I am someone who multitasks. And so whilst I'm making the cup of tea, I'm thinking about something else. I'm probably writing something down. And actually, I want to use on my watch the Breathe app. You know, it's 1 minute. 1 minute of deep breathing. I never use this app. I mean, I never ever do it. So whilst I'm making that cup, what's right?
Have you started using it?
Yes, because my trigger, the habit stacking, is when I go and make that cup of tea. I've got 1 minute with the tea bag in the cup. I stand there for 1 minute and do this breathing. It's just 1 minute in a day, right?
Yeah.
But I can do that. That's achievable. But the trigger to remind me to do it is that I'm making that cup of tea about 11 o'clock of a morning.
Yeah.
And finding ways to make the habit stick. You know, every time I go to a networking event, as soon as I hang my coat up in the event, if it's a physical one, that's a reminder that, hang on, I'm going to go and speak to someone that I haven't met before. So just trying to find ways to make it really easy for you to do these things, I think, is important.
Yeah, that's right. I'm now looking at number 21
Oh,
on
yeah.
the list.
I haven't got it in front of me. Tell me what 21 is.
Number 21 is add the milk at least 1 minute after the tea is brewed.
Yeah. And I don't do that.
Perfect.
But I did.
Now you can.
I'm like bunging it in. I've got one of those hot water taps. So I'm quickly making the tea. I'm sloshing the tea bag around.
Yeah.
No, when I make that cup of tea at that moment in the morning, there's a double whammy. A, the tea tastes better, and B, I get to do a minute of breathing. Simple.
It's all
thing.
about the win-win, isn't it? It's all about the win-win. And making it easy. And I think, God, it's so true about all these time-saving devices. Don't actually save more time, do they? They make you cram more into the same amount of time.
Yes. Yeah, you just want to be more and more efficient.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, if we took longer doing this one thing, we wouldn't necessarily feel that we were having to do all these multitasking and everything. Yeah. I was just going to say something again about the networking, because obviously you don't have to go to a networking event to do networking. You know, you can do networking in your own organization.
Yeah.
And thinking about how, you know, what are those kind of goals you can set for that? You know, is it meeting one new person in your firm if you work in a large firm? You know, or is it, even if you work in a really small firm, maybe it's going to meet one, as you know, maybe meet a supplier face to face, or go and see that client that you haven't seen, you know, for maybe 2 years, given the pandemic. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with the reopening, but it certainly feels like things will return to normal-ish in the not too distant future.
I think that's right, Dom. I think there is it's so important to have a good network where you are. We've talked about this endlessly, haven't we, about exposure and the importance of exposure and the importance of people knowing what you do and the value you add. So even just challenging yourself once a week to connect with someone who you wouldn't ordinarily connect with in your organization, just pick up the phone rather than send that email. You know, we're all too guilty of sending emails. I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to that person rather than send the email, because who knows what could come of that? Who knows what connection you could make? And they're just small things that everyone can do. Yeah.
Do you think there's something about getting back into old habits as well? Because obviously we've lost so many of our daily habits anyway because of what's happened in the last 2 years. Some of them, thank goodness, my daily habit of having to get on the Northern Line and squeeze in, and you know, but there are probably habits I haven't even thought of that were just second nature that you did habitually, that we've forgotten, or you know, those habits have been broken. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to sort of reflect back on those habits that we used to do because they were easy to do because they were in the office.
Yes, and I think you can still do this virtually, but next week I'm doing an Instagram live with Maggie Killick, who's a personal stylist, and she talks about how we have got very used to putting joggy bottoms on and not really making an effort because no one else seems to be making an effort. And actually, it's as easy to put on a lovely pair of wide leg trousers as it is to pull on your joggy bottoms. And these are old habits that it's not about necessarily how you project to other people, it's how you feel inside and how confident you feel about yourself. And dress and clothes and the way you look obviously have a huge impact on that. So I think yes, it is thinking back to what are the habits you used to have, which you did automatically, which are going to be easier to put back in place because you've been used to doing them, or a part of you has been used to doing them at some point in time. Yeah, that is such a good one. In fact, actually, I'd written that on my list of habits. It's the workwear thing, because I can totally relate to that. And that's partly because I think maybe when you're working from home, you've got multiple jobs. Yes. You know, and your uniform in inverted commas isn't necessarily doesn't have to just work for work. You know, you might have to be doing other things if, you know, family at home or new pets that need to go out, all that sort of thing. So one of my habits that my sister has is she actually lays out her work clothes the night before, which I know a lot of people do. I always seem to think it's a good idea, but it's one of my this year plans to stop spending
10 minutes in the morning or 5 minutes in the morning, rifling through the clothes rack and the kind of drawers, thinking, what am I going to wear today? But actually plan it the day before, and you save time in the morning, and you feel like that's something that you haven't got to have any headspace for.
Yes, tiny things. Again, this is small. Make small changes. They will stick. You'll feel better about it. And accumulatively, again, imagine saving 10 minutes every day. You know, you actually save 5 minutes, because it'll take you 5 minutes the night before, but you know, 5 minutes every day, that adds up. And the whole the point we talked about before we did this, before we're doing this Instagram live, is the analogy of the pension fund. You know, putting a small amount, it's insignificant at first what you put into a pension, but the interest, the compound interest, the ability of that pension to grow means by the end, hopefully, if you keep up inputting into your pension, is a really good pot of money. It's going to be vital for your life after the working world. It's thinking about it in that way. It might seem insignificantly small things, but they do have a huge compound impact.
Totally add up. And I heard someone, you reminded me of a film I saw recently of a woman, and it was actually in America, and I scrabbling the back of my mind to get the figures right, but it was, I think this is pretty much broadly right. And this woman was saying that if you put $100 a month into a pension fund from the age of, I think it was 20 until retirement, at the end, you would have a pension pot of over $1 million. If you wait until you're something like 35, that pension pot reduces to $300,000. So it's massive. It is absolutely massive. The value of compound interest, the way compound interest works, I think is a fantastic kind of metaphor for how those small, tiny changes done consistently, but that are achievable and don't feel like they're a mountain to climb, can very quickly add up over the long term to make real, meaningful change.
So I would challenge anyone on this call, if you can't think of anything that you want to immediately change, you can't think of something, go on to that Guardian article. It's called 100 Ways to Slightly Improve Your Life Without Really Trying, and just choose one that you could put into place today and see what happens. If you do that consistently, see what impact that has. That's my challenge to you.
Absolutely. And let us know how you get on. Helen and I will be doing more Instagram lives throughout the course of this year. There's lots of plans afoot for these Instagram lives, including a book club. So if anyone has any suggestions of books they'd like us to talk about, again, please do put those in the comments. We've got a few planned ourselves, but really looking forward to talking to you about those, Helen. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you to everyone else, and look forward to seeing you again at the next Instagram live.
Thank you, Dom. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Helen. Bye.